The Raptors win 124-113 against the Milwaukee Bucks. And what was a bounce-back win, guys. I love to see it. Paul Jones alongside with Sherman Hamilton and myself, Savanna Hamilton. Let's dive right in. Jonesy, what was your thoughts on the small ball lineup? We saw Pascal Siakam at the center.
Well, look, a lot of people, categorize it as small ball. I like to call it skill ball. And I like to look at Nick Nurse playing to his strengths. They like to play quickly. They like to have ball movement. They like to push the pace. And you've got a lineup in there that will do that. And a lot of people were wondering what he was going to do with, with Norm and OG coming back. And you put them both in the lineup. Now, it takes away in other areas. But at the same time, I thought they got off to a good start. They were in the game the whole way. They fell down by 12. But for the most part, I liked what it accomplished early on. And I won't be surprised if we see a lot more of that with Nick Nurse saying to the other team, look, you got to play us at the other end. We might be small at one end, but you got to change ends of the floor. You got to run us down at the other end. And he may just play to his strengths, Savanna.
Now, we like the results that we saw from the skill ball lineup, but Sherm, what was the noticeable results that you saw in between the two, I'm going to say the quote unquote normal lineup that we typically see with the center with Aaron Baines versus the one that we saw last night?
Well, first of all, I think defensively, their ability to switch is at a much higher level to be able to move your feet on the perimeter when you have all those guys. And Pascal, he moves like a small guy as well in terms of his lightness on the perimeter. So I like the fact that defensively they can do a lot of things. And this isn't a league that post-ups are a big thing across the board. So they don't really have to worry about that. And if they do, guys like Fred and Kyle, they're as tough as they come in terms of little guys trying to defend the block. So they're not going to give up any ground. The other thing was the last meeting against Milwaukee, the Raptors were outscored in transition 17-0. This game, the Raptors were able to get out in transition, and they did it off of turnovers, off of good defense. So the pace of the game picks up significantly, and I like that to start the game. Get that energy and the tempo that you want, and with that smaller lineup, they have a lot of ball handlers that can get out and run the floor and get some easy buckets.
You're right. And the Raptors' backcourt was pretty impressive last night. Jonesy, how did Kyle Lowry set the tone before he left in the third quarter?
Well, all you have to do is look at his impact, and sometimes Kyle's impact is not measured in numbers. But I mean, you look at yesterday, 18 points in 22 minutes. He's 7 of 12 on the floor. He's got 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and he's doing Kyle Lowry stuff. He's providing, as I always say, the requisite energy, the needed energy for his team to be successful. And Sherm talked about the defense on the first couple of plays of the game when Milwaukee tried to go to Lopez. The Raptors were in the middle of that, and Norm and Kyle, guys were getting their hands on the ball, creating turnovers. So you just hope for the team's sake that Kyle is able to come back quickly. He's questionable for the next game, but you can only go so far or so long without a guy who's considered your leader and one of your cornerstones. But I thought he was terrific. I thought he was great in terms of setting the tone for the bounce back victory after the disappointing loss to Minnesota.
And somebody who also stepped up, just particularly down the stretch, has been Fred VanVleet. And Sherm, talk to me about what you saw from him last night.
The usual from Fred VanVleet, the consummate leader, the guy who's going to bring it throughout the course of the game. And I thought when Kyle went down, you just saw him raise his level in terms of making sure that he set the table for others. And then, the timing of a point guard and the ability to feel the pulse and gauge the temperature of the game is so crucial. And Fred does an amazing job of that in terms of recognizing when he's got to find teammates and then taking pieces for himself at the right time. He never detracts from the situation when his offense is a part of their flow. So I think Fred just answered the call as he usually does, stepped up, had a very good scoring game, did a good job assisting with 7 assists in the game. But the leadership that he brought in the absence of Kyle is something that we've become accustomed to. So there's no surprises there. Fred got the job done.
Now, no longer absent is OG Anunoby. He was missed, and his stats definitely hurt. He had 13 points, 7 rebounds in 27 minutes. So, Jonesy, how significant was OG's return on offense? And Sherm, jump right in on his defense after.
Well, it gives them another offensive threat. And I know there were people last night on social media saying, well, where's Norm? Where's Norm? Well, Norm doesn't have to score 20, 25 again because you've got OG back in the lineup. Now you've got two threats to do that. And a guy like OG gives you the versatility on offense too. I keep saying this. Nick Nurse doesn't want him to just stand in the corner. We saw some exquisite ball handling by OG on some of his scores. And he looked pretty good. Like normally you would think a guy would come up a little short. There'd be a little rust there. We know that games are not the same as practices or working out. OG's first jumper was a catch and shoot, and then he puts it on the floor and creates space and knocks down a jumper. So you can tell that he'd been working out and there wasn't much slippage. So I liked what he gave them on the offensive end. And again, more than anything, he's a threat out there and it opens it up for the other guys.
Yeah, and defensively, when you talk about trying to be a good defensive team, it's so important for on-ball accountability. The individual who's charged with defending the basketball has to be very good and very consistent and determined to stay within the game plan. And I think that OG brings that kind of stability on the ball, especially defending major scorers in the league, like a Giannis. I mean, Giannis did have a big game scoring, but you can't tell me that OG and the Raptors collectively didn't do a better job of kind of walling him off and not giving him his options, especially late in the game. I thought they did a great job, but you need that principled defender on the ball. And OG has the size, the strength, he has great instincts, and he also does a very good job being physical with scorers, not allowing them to take space away. And I think all those elements when he's not in the lineup are sorely missed. And you look at the way the Raptors ended the game, only allowing one field goal by Milwaukee in the last 5 minutes or so. That's a lot to do with OG and the collective defensive toughness that he brings and helps his team build around.
Absolutely. OG is one of those players that you don't realize how much you need him until he's gone. And then he's coming back now. And what stuck out to me was his defensive presence as well. You're right. He's such an athletic body in the paint, on the perimeter. He can guard almost 1 through 5, basically. So, sharing his thoughts along with the rest of the team, they talked about OG's return last night as well.
I think that just again, his size helps with matchups. Just again helps with some rim protection on a night like tonight. He made a couple great moves, right, offensively as well, and I think he made his first possession of the game or something. So it was not, I think he was really good. I don't think he was totally, understandably in super rhythm, but I thought for where he was at and how long he's been out, he was excellent.
It felt good to be back out there. Had some tough games, so excited to be back. Everyone was encouraging me, so it felt good. Yeah, when you're watching the game, you learn things about the game, like both teams you're watching. So just trying to see where I could help the team, things I could do that we weren't doing. Just making an effort to do it when I'm back.
Obviously, we need him back, and he's been one of our better players this year, probably one of our more consistent players this year. And so, you look up and I'm thinking that's 9, 10 games. I didn't realize it was that many. But definitely just having him back out there is a different feel. It gives more flexibility. And, a lot of times this year, it just feels like we're at the mercy of the other team quite a bit sometimes. And tonight, I thought from the tip, we were pretty aggressive. And a lot of that has to do with, OG's versatility and take some of the pressure off Pascal. And, obviously Baines went to the bench, but I thought he was great in his minutes when he came in. Chris was great. So just kind of put everybody in a better position, having one of our better players back on the floor. It's not rocket science, but just definitely good to have OG back.
I think, is definitely a big piece. And having him out there also, on defense, there's a lot more switching that we can do, knowing that he can hold up, some of the bigs and guard the guards on the perimeter. So there's just a lot that we can do as a team. His versatility as a defender, definitely help us. And I think the more guys like that we have, the better our small lineup could work because we can do a lot of different things.
Run it back. The Raptors will play the Milwaukee Bucks again February 18th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Catch it on TSN and listen to it on TSN 1050. Now, guys, we saw the Raptors step up defensively down the stretch. Let's break it down a little bit more. Jonesy, how impressed were you with the fourth quarter defense?
They clamped down. I thought Milwaukee really did a good job early of getting into the paint. Giannis really got going in the second half, and they'd get into the paint, pitch it out, and you've got DiVincenzo and Connaughton and all these guys knocking down shots, and they shut that down in the fourth quarter late. And a lot of it, we talk about OG. If you think back to the playoff series, it was when Kawhi took on Giannis, and you had an elite defender to try and slow him down. Well, the Raptors did that. OG was the guy, at times, even with switches, trying to hang on to Giannis. And now you can kind of stay home, or when you're going to have to help or where you're going to have to help. And Sherm always talks about this, not overreacting. Pat Connaughton was terrific early, but late, there wasn't much. They were on him. They were contesting shots. Those shots had a little bit more pressure on them because they weren't, those willy-nilly shots at the start of the game. They were big shots towards the end. And I thought the Raptors collectively did a great job at the point of attack, helping and scrambling out to recover, and then rebounding at the end of it.
Now, we also saw that Chris Middleton maybe didn't play the best game that we're used to seeing him play, and that's credit to, once again, the Raptors defense. So, Sherm, break it down. How did the Raptors guard him, and why was that so successful this time?
Well, I thought their ability, we talk a lot about on-ball defense with OG, but I thought their help side was early consistently. And when you're talking about a Chris Middleton, he's not just a guy, as we see some of his numbers from the meeting on January 27th, as opposed to last night. I mean, he is a guy who can hurt you on many different levels. This game, he only took 8 shots. And I think the Raptors did a good job of getting into him early, not allowing him to kind of create space and get that shot off. And again, when you're trying to build a wall, the great thing about it is you can stay really tight and compact. And then once that ball is kicked out, your rotations and your ability to close out the three-point line isn't as far and isn't as disjointed from trying to rotate and get to matchups again. So they did a good job staying connected to Chris Middleton. And maybe that's why Pat Connaughton got going a bit and DiVincenzo got going. But Middleton can help beat you. Connaughton, not so much. DiVincenzo, not so much. And I think the Raptors did a good job taking care of Giannis, the focus and attention on him. But then his Robin is definitely Chris Middleton, and they did a very good job on him as well.
Jonesy, sorry, real quick. Can you talk on what we saw from Giannis's scoring game last night?
He's a monster. You get him if you don't get him around the center line, midcourt, and start to slow him down. If he starts coming downhill at you and he's reached the 3-point line with a head of steam, you're in trouble. And I thought the Raptors did a little bit of that at times where they were able to meet him just over center and make him go east-west, slow him down a little bit, and then dare him to go by you without the head of steam. I think that's the best way to handle him. And then, as Sherm said, take the ball out of his hands and make somebody else beat you.
And, well, I mean, do you want it to? Anyways, we had to go now to RTX, to a previous conversation we had. Today on RTX, joining us, we got Amit, Mann, producer at Yahoo Sports Canada. Nice to have you back on the show, Amit. And joining us again is Natasha Shivraj, producer at TSN 1050. Natasha, it's great to have you back as well.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me back.
Let's jump right in it. So, last night we saw the Raptors win against the Bucks, but keep in mind, for this past Sunday, they lost against the Timberwolves, who are one of the worst teams in the NBA. But, they really redeemed themselves last night by winning against one of the best. Standings aside, how do you guys measure this Raptors team and your expectations? Natasha, I'll start with you.
So I think that it's kind of hard to measure where we're at exactly, because we're getting better as the games go on, which is obviously a good sign. I think the whole team is playing much better defensively. Guys are making much better offensive decisions as well. We're not settling for jumpers anymore. We're driving to the basket. We're creating more plays in the paint, and we're attacking. So there's a lot of good things
in favor of the Toronto Raptors. I mean, this small ball lineup, there could be something here. We have to first off praise OG Anunoby. My goodness, we now see how important he is to this roster, especially Pascal Siakam too. Having guys that can guard 5 positions, I mean, it's a godsend. Anyways, the small ball lineup, I think this is something that can really work for at least probably 75% of the teams in the NBA. For the other ones, when you got to face off like a Jokic or a Valanciunas, you got a problem, obviously. But I will bank on those 5 guys figuring it out and getting one level higher than asking someone who's right here to try and get right here, because these guys can get there, and they also have just like the overall talent. I mean, you talk about the defense, the three-point shooting, the scoring ability, like that lineup is really, really good. They are who they are. Okay, the record is what it is, and this is a team that we have in front of us. They're a fringe playoff team at the moment, but the second half of the season is around the corner, and I think they are able to at least get to another level and find that consistency. If they get that consistency, they're in a good position to at least make some noise in the Eastern Conference.
I agree. And now you mentioned Pascal Siakam, and he was up for Raptors voting in terms of All-Star, but the voting has now closed. For the general public, at least. And as we await the results, I want to talk favorite Raptors All-Star moments. I want to go back. Amit, kick us off. What has been your favorite Raptors moment in terms of All-Star weekend, on or off the court, in the competition? Doesn't just have to be the All-Star game.
Yeah, this is a tough question, because you want to go with the dunk contest, right? I mean, between Vince Carter, DeMar DeRozan, obviously he was robbed twice, Terrence Ross, all did a terrific job representing Toronto in those competitions. But I'm just going to go back to last year, because Kyle Lowry was the talking point in a game that featured like LeBron James, Giannis, go down the list. He was the takeaway. How cool is that? Our own Kyle Lowry was the person that people were talking about at the water cooler the next day, because he was the person who put defense into an All-Star game. God bless him. So that is my moment. I love him.
Yeah, I'm going to throw everybody off here a little bit, and I'm going to go with my pick. And I'm going to go back to 2008, and I'm going to say that it's not really an all-star memory exactly, but it's not an all-star festivity per se, but I'm going to go back to Chris Bosh's hilarious commercial campaign that he made just to make the all-star team. Till today, that sticks out to me. Like, I have watched that video so many times, and I don't know why. It just, I can't get it out of my brain. Like, I just love it. I think it has to do with an athlete showing like their personality and just like a different side of them that we don't really see when they're playing basketball, of course. And it makes them more human, and it just helps us connect to them more. And honestly, I love that video. I watch that video all the time, and that's what All-Star is about. That's what the weekend is about. It's just having fun, enjoying the culture behind the sport, and just being stress-free.
Absolutely. It's so funny that you say Chris Bosh, because I was going to actually say him too. For me, growing up, he made being a big man in the league, to me personally, he made it cool. Like, he had some swag to that position. And he was so funny. Like, those commercials were so great. But I would say for my personal favorite highlight of the NBA, VC, one arm in the hoop. Enough said.
Fact.
So former Toronto Raptor Lucas Bebe Nogueira announced his retirement from basketball. He reflected on his most happiest time, saying those 4 years playing in Toronto was the most happiest moments in my life. And he actually goes on to even say that, the love that he got in Toronto was not even the same that he got in his own country. But like, with that being said, Natasha, what do you believe that makes playing in Toronto so memorable?
I think that we're lucky in two ways. I think that we have a huge advantage in the fact that we're the only Canadian team in the league. So not only do we have a city's support behind these players that come in, but we have an entire country supporting, which you can't say for any of the other teams. Anywhere you go in Canada, it's We the North and Raptors, whether you're on the West Coast, it doesn't matter where you are, it's Raptors, and that's the only team that they have to go for. So I think that's one of the advantages. And I also think the second thing is just the culture and the ride or die support that we give to the players that are coming in. It's just so special to see how we invite these players in, and we find characteristic traits in them that go beyond the game, and we pick up little quirks from them and other talents that they may have that have nothing to do with the game of basketball. And I think that they see that when they come here, and I think that excites them and it makes them feel at home.
Can we just kind of dismiss this whole Toronto winters is a problem? That's why free agents don't want to come here. Okay, like half the league is in the East Coast. So like, what are we talking about? Snow is everywhere.
They're scarred. They're scarred by our last All-Star weekend that we had in Toronto. It was like negative, almost like what, 40?
Oh my God, that was so terrible. That was an embarrassing moment. That was an all-time low moment in Toronto history. Outside of that, though, I think there is a bit of not a familiarity with what Toronto is, because a lot of players who come from the U.S. or even like in Bebe coming from South America, they just know nothing about Toronto. Then they come and they're like, okay, so you got the Danforth, you got King Street, you got all these little pockets of the city that are so unique and different in their own little way. And then you just look at the whole city as a whole, like it's just, there's not really much to criticize about Toronto. That's why people call it like a clean New York. That's what it is. And also, as we all know, I mean, summers in Toronto are undefeated. Everyone says this. We all know this. When they get a taste of it, yeah, that's it. So.
Caravana. I'm gonna leave it at that. Say no more.
Oh man.
Thank you guys for joining us here on RTX. It's time now to get back to Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton. Looking up ahead, they have a bit of a tough stretch here as they face the Bucks again. And oh, yep, there it is. The Timberwolves on a back-to-back, and then the Sixers in a double series here. Now, Jonesy, what adjustments would you like to see the Raptors make when they approach the Timberwolves again?
I always joke that when you lose to a team that you think you should beat, it's like a boxer saying when he loses to the manager, get that guy again. And the manager says, well, you just had him. And luckily for the Raptors, they're getting Minnesota again quickly. And first of all, they've got to adjust their attitude. It really seemed like at times they were playing the 6-20 Timberwolves, and they were playing the record instead of the team on the floor. Toronto allowed Minnesota to shoot 52%. The defense has to be better. There has to be a more concerted effort, more attention to detail. Ricky Rubio did a terrific job in getting Minnesota going. Malik Beasley, they held on to Karl Anthony Towns for a while, but trying to stop a star player like that is holding water in your hands. You knew that he was going to get going. I just thought Toronto depended too much on their offense to keep them in the game. And when that failed, there was nothing at the back end. They only shoot 41%. So I'm just looking for a much more concerted effort, Savanna. And I'm sure there's a little motivation there, having been beaten by Minnesota and just looking at it as a game that, you're never supposed to win. But if you're a team that's professional and taking care of business, that's a victory that you should get.
Absolutely. And we've also seen them, play up to levels as well, as we saw them with the Bucks. So this team it's very interesting to watch them match expectations, exceed expectations during certain games. Now, Sherm, what are your expectations with the 76ers? Because they've been performing pretty well this season.
Yeah, it's an interesting team right now, Philadelphia. Finally playing to the level that people have thought they should be playing at, being the Eastern Conference at 18-10. Now, this is a team that Joel Embiid is leading. I mean, he's doing a great job, averaging around 30 and 11. So this guy is doing what we expect him to do with his skill set, dominating games both on the glass and scoring. And then that allows more room for everybody else to operate when Joel Embiid's playing at such a high level. Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, guys are getting free on the three-point line like Seth Curry. These are guys who are going to get a lot more looks, a lot more opportunities based on the fact that Joel Embiid is dominating. And if that's the situation, the Raptors are going to have their hands full. And that's where that small lineup really gets tested, because Pascal is going to have to defend the bigger body.
Thank you guys so much for your thoughts on that. We will see you guys, the viewers, next time on Raptors Today. Thank you for watching our latest episode. Make sure you subscribe to all the Toronto Raptors social channels so that you don't miss a thing.